As I played around with inks, as well as the lithographic pencils, I just was trying to create a kind of ecosystem that would somehow be as diverse and evocative as what I see in nature. I'm Andrea Packard, and I am a mixed media artist. I work with sculpture, painting, printmaking, and most of all, fabric. I grew up in Connecticut in a woodsy area and have always been inspired by the landscape and concerned by the changing nature of the landscape as we impact it profoundly. The print is a lithograph on handmade paper. I started with continuing my interest in landscape and thinking about elements in nature that have been changing. This project began just about a month after Pennsylvania was on a kind of lockdown, and we really didn't know how the pandemic would unfold or how serious it would be, but it looked bad. Many people were on the streets despite the pandemic, fighting for social justice. And we were inundated daily in the news with the normalization of violence and ecological disasters continuing to unfold with the fires in the West. And a lot of my work had already been engaged with the destruction of the environment, but also the way we're separated from the environment, we're also separated from other communities. My love of collage began hand in hand with printmaking because I would often work on top of artist proofs or printer's proofs and use those cast-off materials to create new pieces. Usually I work very experimentally. I'll start with an inspiration, but I don't really know where the work will go. And it's usually a long labor of love over many months of adding and subtracting materials. And in my case, I was fortunate to work with Nicole Donnelly, the paper maker, and Galen Gibson, who created the lithograph. Because I was going from a practice of working with relief to a print, I still wanted it to have organic and variable texture. And so I leapt at the opportunity to work with Nicole, who could make handmade paper that would have a really rich, varied texture. It incorporates pigmented pulp that she screened in and applied by hand. So that was the substrate on which Galen then created the lithograph using 3 colored layers, red, yellow, and blue.
We can create something that's very flat and graphic, but it's also possible to create something that's very painterly and very much about the mark. And Andrea's work is so specifically about mark making that was an important part of the process in our exchange. This required her to take drawings between myself, between her and Galen, and for all of us to sort of share and work off of the same template and matrix.
I think that the process of collaborating with an artist is kind of magical because you end up with an end result that neither person could have arrived at on their own. But what happens that's most interesting to me is when the artist wants something that a traditional printmaker might say that can't be done, but figuring out a way to meet that person. That's not to say that the artist gets everything they want, but the point is that the two people meet together and then the end result is something that's really unique or really interesting.
This print began with drawn, photographed, and fabric elements. When I translated it onto Mylar, I wanted to, in a way, express the conjunction of 2 very different worlds. On the one hand, the built environment, and on the other hand, a natural, dynamic ecosystem. But I wanted those 2 worlds to be clashing and recombining in a way that was a kind of liminal or transitive experience. And then the whole practice of separating those into different color layers, that made me think about my work in a fundamentally different way. I have long admired Brandywine Print Workshop as someone who's followed many of the artists who've made prints there. So I was thrilled to have this challenge of making a print with Brandywine printmakers.